In the 1930s, America stood at a crossroads. It was a decade defined by struggle, resilience, and transformation. A time when hardship tested the spirit of an entire nation, yet hope refused to die. As we step back into this turbulent era, we walk through a country fighting to survive and daring to rebuild. The Great Depression had tightened its grip on every corner of American life. Banks had collapsed. Factories stood silent, and millions were suddenly without work. Families lined up at soup kitchens, their lives reduced to day-by-day survival. Streets that were once full of motion now echoed with uncertainty. Even the brightest cities felt dimmed by the weight of an economic collapse no one saw coming. Across the rural heartland, another disaster unfolded. The Dust Bowl swept across the plains with violent storms of dirt and drought, turning fertile farmland into barren wasteland. Farmers watched their crops vanish, their homes abandoned, and their futures uprooted. They packed their belongings onto old trucks and headed west, searching for a new beginning, even when they weren't sure one existed. But the story of 1930s America is not only about struggle, it is also a story of incredible resilience. Fought to rise again, leaders and communities began reshaping the future. President Franklin D. Roosevelt introduced the New Deal, a bold and unprecedented plan to rebuild the economy and restore faith. Massive public works projects emerged. Roads, bridges, parks, and dams, all built by ordinary Americans who finally found work again. Slowly, hope took root. In bustling cities, new forms of entertainment helped lift the country's spirits. The golden age of Hollywood brought laughter, music, and stories that offered escape from reality. People filled theaters to watch Clark Gable, Judy Garland, and Charlie Chaplin. Radio, once a luxury, became the heartbeat of American homes. Families gathered around glowing dials, listening to news, dramas, and the comforting voices that brought the world right into their living rooms. Music, too, found its voice. Swing and jazz lit up dance halls, giving young Americans a place to forget their worries, even for a few minutes. The rhythms of Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, and Ella Fitzgerald echoed through the decade, reminding the nation that joy could exist even in hard times. Meanwhile, innovation pushed forward. The first modern skyscrapers began shaping iconic skylines. Automobiles became more accessible, placing mobility and independence into the hands of millions. And despite the economic turmoil, America's ambition remained unbroken. The 1930s laid the groundwork for the modern world with new ideas, new technologies, and a renewed national identity. But perhaps the most important part of the decade was the people. ordinary men and women who held on to hope when everything else fell apart. Farmers who replanted after losing everything. Workers who rebuilt their cities with their own hands. Families who gathered each night believing that tomorrow would be better. Their courage defined the decade and helped carry America toward recovery. As the decade drew to a close, clouds once again gathered on the horizon. This time from across the ocean. The rise of global conflict signaled a new challenge ahead, one that would test the nation in ways no one yet imagined. But America entered the 1940s stronger, more united, and ready to face the world with a resilience born from the struggles of the 1930s. This was 1930s America.